After 2 days of settlement talks and a summary judgment hearing on Thursday, we have a strongly worded update on the NASCAR lawsuit. Daniel Suarez is joining Spire Motorsports in 2026. NASCAR moves the date of the 2027 Daytona 500, and how many people tuned in to watch Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series race at Talladega. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. On Tuesday, NASCAR, along with 2311 Racing, Front Row Motorsports, their representatives, Judge Kenneth Bell, and mediator Jeffrey Michigan got together at the Western Circuit District Court in North Carolina to discuss a possible settlement. They talked for 8 hours on Tuesday and agreed to continue talking on Wednesday, where they talked for another 8 hours, and they left without a settlement. They decided to go into their summary judgment hearings on Thursday, and that is where we got a strongly worded update from Jeffrey Kessler, the lawyer representing the teams in this lawsuit. Now, after both days of conversations on both Tuesday and Wednesday, he came out and said no comment. Didn't want to talk about anything. Wanted to continue having the conversation, see if anything could get done. Well, on Thursday, after they had their summary judgment hearing, which we won't know anything about the judge's ruling on any of that for probably maybe 2 weeks. It could take up to 2 weeks, rather. Jeffrey Kessler put out a statement that says, "My client's goal has always been to provide opportunities for growth and stability for every team, and they remain steadfast advocates for a fairer, stronger sport. Today's hearing confirmed the facts of NASCAR's monopolistic practices and showed NASCAR for who they are, retaliatory bullies who would rather focus on personal attacks and distract from the facts. My clients have never been more united and committed to ensuring a fair and competitive sport for all teams, partners, drivers, and fans. We're going to trial to hold NASCAR accountable." That last line right there, "we're going to trial to hold NASCAR accountable," says that everything they talked about on Tuesday and Wednesday has gone completely out the window, and they are very focused on that trial date set for December 1st. 2-week trial. We should know by Christmas time, potentially, maybe the outcome of this. We'll have to wait and see how long it's going to play out. And hey, there's still the possibility that they could come to a settlement, right? I felt that when they got together for these settlement talks with the mediator, Jeffrey Michigan, and the fact that NASCAR went to the courts to ask for, some mediation help, that things might get better. Wrong. Definitely wrong there. It felt like we had some positive momentum towards a settlement, which is the best solution for all the fans in this situation here. Yeah, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Looks like the teams are very committed to going to trial, which I'm interested to know what the teams are asking for in the situation. I know permanent charters is obviously probably the one main thing they're asking for. NASCAR doesn't seem too super fond on giving that to them. They would prefer to continue to negotiate the charters on a media rights deal by media rights deal basis. I think that Adam Stern from the Sports Business Journal kind of floated the idea that has been talked about of basically giving teams permanent charter status, but then separating charters from the media rights deal, and then, negotiating media rights deals on their own, plus the payout for the teams as separate negotiations during each period, whether that be 7, 5, 10 years, however long the media rights deals are. Either way, yeah, it looks like it's going to go to trial, and that's going to be really great for everybody that makes content, right? Kind of sucks for everybody else because it distracts from the sport. NASCAR could ultimately look fundamentally different in 2026 or 2027, because I imagine this is probably going to go through an appeals process as well, regardless of who has, who's the winner in this first case here, this first trial. So we'll see how all that plays out. But yeah, that positive momentum, that died out real quick. It's like an engine right before it's about to explode. It always runs really good, and then boom, down. That's what this felt like. I feel like we're making good progress. Wrong. You're wrong. We're all fools. So we'll wait and see what the judge rules in this. On Wednesday, Spire Motorsports announced that they have a new amigo joining their team. Daniel Suarez will join Spire Motorsports for the 2026 season in the number 7 car, replacing the departing Justin Haley. This will be the third different full-time driver for the number 7 car in 3 years, and there's a strong possibility they'll have a fourth one in 2027 as well. I would imagine that this is a 1-year deal for Daniel Suarez with a team option for 2027. And hey, if he goes out and wins races in the first 2 months of the year, first 3 months of the year, then yeah, you could imagine that his option's probably going to get picked up. But there is expected to be a very active driver market, a very active silly season in 2026 as we head to 2027. A lot of drivers are coming to the end of contracts, a lot of unknowns around who's going to end up where right now, and maybe we'll do a video about that in the future here. But for the most part, yeah, I think that keeping your options open makes sense from a Spire standpoint here, because they had the money to spend Just depends on who that driver they could possibly convince to come over here. I know a lot of people think that Kyle Busch is going to end up there because of his deep ties to Jeff Dickerson. We'll wait and see how all of that plays out. But the signing of Daniel Suarez makes sense. And I know people are going to be like, hey, Matt, he's not doing very much performance-wise. Is this really a gain over Justin Haley? Arguably, no, not really. Justin Haley is sitting right now 31st in points. Suarez is sitting 28th in points. Suarez got 2 top 5s and 7 top 10s on the year. And meanwhile, Justin Haley's got like 1 top 5 and maybe 2 or 3 top 10s, like just not very good numbers for the most part. So is it really that big of a gain? No, not necessarily. But what Daniel Suarez does bring along with him is his sponsor in Freeway Insurance. That will be the anchor sponsor on the number 7 car next year. And eventually, you knew something like this was going to happen, because right now, if you look at the cars over at Spire Motorsports, you see a lot of Gamebridge and you see a lot of Delaware Light. Those are companies that are owned by Dan Towers, who co-owns Spire Motorsports, along with Andretti Global, along with the Cadillac F1 team. And eventually, you want somebody else to come in and start writing the checks instead of you having to continually cover the cost of these race teams. And running 3 NASCAR Cup Series teams isn't cheap. And they've done a really good job this year of finding new partners and getting new sponsors into the sport. I mean, heck, that Michael McDowell Tide ride for Phoenix looks fantastic, but you'd like to see it be more than just one race. So bringing Suarez in means that they don't have to cover the cost of Justin Haley and pay Justin Haley to drive that number 7 car in 31st place. So they can bring Suarez in. He brings a decent portion of the budget, and then he can run in 31st place because it doesn't come out of their pocket. Either way, I know at the press conference they said that they'd like this to be a long-term relationship, and hopefully it is. And maybe it will be. Like, they could always pan out that way. But right now, it feels like this is probably just a placeholder for the 7 car for another year, and then they'll go out and find another driver that they want to put in there. Ultimately, I think Spire would like to make a big-time signing. They reached out to try to make a big-time signing this year, try to buy driver out of his contract, see if they're interested in coming over. Ultimately, we're told no. I believe they even explored potentially trying to get Kyle Busch over there as well, but the buyout in his RCR contract just doesn't make financial sense for them. So ultimately going with Suarez, who brings some budget along with him, made the most sense there. On Wednesday, NASCAR announced that they are moving the 2027 Daytona 500 off of President's Day weekend and pushing it back a week to February 27th to avoid a conflict with the Super Bowl, which is expected to take over that Sunday date on President's Day weekend, because the NFL overlord / commissioner Roger Goodell wants to make sure that the NFL season lasts as long as possible and would like to try to acquire every single different holiday date out there. At some point, he's going to find a way to make the 4th of July about the NFL as well. And now he's taking President's Day because the thought process is, well, there's a lot of people that get the Monday off for President's Day. So it becomes like the holiday for the Super Bowl here. And I get it, right? There's going to be a lot of upset fans, NASCAR fans, about this, but it's only in the last few years that it's kind of become this President's Day tradition for NASCAR to run the 500. It's been earlier in the year. It's been later in the year. It's been on this weekend in February before. So ultimately, it's just kind of pushing everything back. If you're in the sport, enjoy your 2 off weekends in 2026, because you're likely only going to get one once again in 2027. We'll have to wait and see how the calendar plays out for that. But when I posted this on social, I got a ton of comments from people being like, hey, Matt, why don't we just run this race before the Daytona 500? Just a doubleheader. Start the engines at 1 o'clock, kickoff at 6:30. This is the best American doubleheader you could possibly have. Well, for a lot of reasons, it just doesn't make much sense. We'll start off with the obvious one here, rain. I know it's called the Sunshine State, but that might just be the biggest lie, especially in February, because as you know, the last 2 Daytona 500s have been affected by rain. This year's Daytona 500 got rain delayed, finished later into the evening, and last year's Daytona 500 got pushed to the next day as well. So let's think about that. You start the race at 1 o'clock, you get a 2-hour rain delay in there. You're not finishing this race until after the Super Bowl has already kicked off. There's going to be 157 people that are watching this race at the end. Meanwhile, everybody else is over there watching the biggest sporting event to happen in America every single year. So that's not really, that's a non-starter for the most part. Then you throw in the fact that the networks want to have their 6.5 hours of pregame coverage, because we need to cover anything and everything. Every single topic you could possibly squeeze out of these 2 teams, they're going to have to talk about it. And then we're going to have to look at Rob Gronkowski, try to make some stupid prediction, and the whole Fox guys be like, look, he's dumb. I mean, it's like, you all are dumb. You all just laugh at dumb things. It seems to be a common trend over there at Fox. So yeah, that's also a bit of a non-starter as as well. I get it, right? You want to have your 200 laps, your 500 miles, having it before would be really fun. And let's be honest, do you really think Fox is going to be like, yeah, let's try to fit a 500-mile race in right before we're going to have the football coverage here? And obviously, I know the Super Bowl moves around from different networks, but it just really doesn't make too much logistical sense, especially if Fox has the Super Bowl and the Daytona 500 on the same year. Yeah, that's going to be a nightmare for them, especially when it comes to getting cameras, production people, trailers, like everything about it, trying to run two major events at the same time. Yeah, that's just not going to work. So for NASCAR, it's better to just give the weekend away to the NFL. Take the next weekend. You own that entire weekend. It allows you to be the main card, the main event for that weekend as well. And that's ultimately the better solution for them. I get it. I know everybody would like to have this doubleheader, be able to watch, from basically 1 o'clock until 10 o'clock at night, two of the biggest events to happen in American sports every year. But it just doesn't make sense financially, logistically, or, even weather-wise. It's just not a smart move. Right, so let's talk about viewership from this past weekend's races. We'll start off with the NASCAR Cup Series race at Talladega on Sunday. NASCAR's return to network television on NBC. That drew in 2.56 million viewers, down from last year's 3.1 million viewers, but still up from 2023. Meanwhile, F1, the self-appointed pinnacle of motorsports, hosted the United States Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas in Austin on Sunday, which was shown on ABC. So another race on network television. It drew in 1.5 million viewers. So for the math whizzes at home, that means that NASCAR beat out Formula One by just over 1 million viewers, which we've come to expect, right? Obviously, both of them are going head-to-head against the NFL, both of them going head-to-head against each other. But when you put NASCAR at Talladega, listen, people love Talladega. They love super speedway racing. They love going fast, turning left, and trying to see if there's going to be a big crash that happens or an unpredictable winner. Meanwhile, Formula One put on the United States Grand Prix, and I double TV'd it. I watched it, and it was a mid-race at best. It was meh. It wasn't a very good race, all things considered. And Max Verstappen has once again put himself right back into the title conversation, which is a different topic for a different day. But NASCAR continues to beat out Formula One, which is expected. Formula One, meanwhile, continues to beat out NASCAR in that 18 to 35-year-old demo, which we do expect that as well. Now, I know there's going to be people that are like, Matt, what about the F1 TV audience? If you put that in, that closes the gap. It's probably even. It's not even close. There's not a million people watching on F1 TV. If F1 TV was that popular, Formula One wouldn't have axed it and then, made it part of Apple TV for next year. They would have kept it as its own standalone service because they would have made a lot of money from it. The idea that they combined it with Apple TV goes to kind of show you that it's not as strong as what some people say. Well, me and all my friends we watch it on the app. I get that. I understand that, but you're still talking about a bubble here. And I'm having a conversation with somebody that just doesn't exist. It's just the comments that I see here. So yeah, you're going to have people that are going to say, what about the F1 TV numbers? They don't matter in this situation because it's still not going to make up that 1 million viewer gap to NASCAR. And then, of course, you're going to have the people out here that are like, what about the global audience? Show us how many viewers NASCAR got globally and how many viewers F1 got globally. Yeah, I understand that F1 is a global motorsport. F1 historically has been a global motorsport, and it's going to have more viewers than what NASCAR has. That is not applicable to this conversation at all. I'm strictly talking about American viewership numbers because that's all I really care about. I don't know why we continue to bring up the global audience for Formula One and be like, well, compare that to NASCAR. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to compare it to the domestic stock car series of the United States when this is a global motorsport series? It just doesn't make very much sense. Use your brains here. So let me know in the comments what you think about the NASCAR lawsuit, Jeffrey Kessler's statement, Daniel Suarez going to Spire, NASCAR moving the Daytona 500 back a week in 2027, and the viewership numbers from this past weekend's race. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.